Good evening, Algebra 1 students. We're almost on the wrap-up of the Building with Functions. You have two more sections to do before May 7th. We're requesting May 7th, that's a Thursday, that they be completed and sent to us. And we'll talk more about that later, right? So we're going to get right into it. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do Building with Functions. So we're going to go to my website. I'm going to share my screen. You want to make a comment? Some comments, Mr. Howell. I do that.
Yeah, sure. So welcome everybody. Um, this is going to be the last video, and we realize that there's still two sections to go, but you actually don't have that much time left. So we're going to put it all in one, and really your last section isn't that much for you to do as far as math related. Like it's more of a reflection piece. So we're just going to wrap that up and tie it in with this. The only other thing I will comment on, like Ms. Livingston just said, May 7th is the due date. So don't overlook that. And also, at the very bottom of the rubric, which has been shared to all of you, the compare and contrast section, there wasn't time to actually fit it into our schedule. So it's on there as a bonus. Obviously, if it's a bonus, you don't have to do it. But if you do it, that'll be a great way to get extra points on this. And basically, what I'm saying is if you got the time and you do the bonus, it's going to help you a lot on the project. And with this project counting for the majority of your grade for this quarter, if you're doing the enhancement, that's a pretty big deal to turn down. If you're super busy with your other classes, I get it, but just be aware that it's there. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Livingston as we move into building functions.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. All right, so building functions is all about transformations. And if you recall your transformations even from linear, quadratic, or exponential, it's like, well, so when you learned in 8th grade about shapes and what you're going to be doing also in geometry next year.
And didn't they have a whole task on it when we did exponentials? Wasn't there like a, what was it called, high functioning or something? Like the whole, like that task? Yeah, we had a task in that packet that y'all did.
Okay, so let's again, always before we start, we might want to take a look at the rubric so we can make sure we're including everything that we need in the rubric. And A says each parent function should be labeled and each new function should be labeled, and graphs should include the parent functions. So the first thing I'd say in A is let's have three functions that we can see what the three functions are. So you can remember, do this several ways. Desmos, hand graphing, find it, put it in a Google slide in Desmos. But I learned something new the other day about Desmos, so I'm going to share that. So I'm going to go over here to Desmos, okay? So here are your three parent functions. Y equals x is linear, that's the red line. Y equals x squared, that is our quadratic. And y equals 2 to the x, it could be 3 to the x, it could be 5 to the x, but remember exponential means that the variable is the exponent. So then these are graphed here. Now on previous videos, I just did a snipping tool and I snipped it in, control pasted it over to a slide or to a document. Well, here I found this other new little tool in Desmos, which some of you might already know, is that if you go up to the top right, it says Share Graph. It's up next to the sign in. It's Share Graphs. If you click on that, it gives you an option of how you want to share the graph. You can import the image, which might be nice if you need to print it, or look at this one, embed it. That means embed it. So if you want to embed it right there so you don't have to worry about it, there's the code. All you have to do is copy the code, and then you go back to your website. Oops, sorry, I picked up something else. It was there. Okay, and then all you have to do is, let's say I take this out now, but I want to embed it here. So where do you go over here to the right where it has the little, next to the Google Drive symbol, the embed, and not the URL, you're going to put the embedded code you copied, Control V, I'm putting it in, and I'm going to insert it, And believe it or not, it embeds it right into your document. Isn't that cool? So
How
I
fast
put
to
it
take a
down. I should put it
picture
at the top.
for sure.
Yes, definitely. So I think that's pretty cool because this whole section on transformations is graphs. So now if you go back to the rubric, it says to do B, explain vertical translations. So we want to create 3 vertical translations using 3 parent graphs. Describe the change of the graph. Okay, so here we go. All right, I keep going over that person's thing. Here we go. So you could figure out, well, maybe I want to pick this layout here. You know, this one has 3, so I selected that. And linear translation. So I can then go over here to Desmos again. So I'm going to Desmos. And instead of doing the parent graphs, I'm going to do a translation graph. So I'm going to take the X squared graph because I think that's a better one for us to see. I'm going to do this and I'm going to square it. And then, okay, if you recall from our lesson on transformations, if you're going to move a graph up or down, you have to do what to it? You want to just move it up or down. It's on the outside, plus or minus. So we're just going to say plus 3. And there's my translation. I moved it up 3. What if I wanted to move it down 3? I'm going to do minus 3. And then you're also going to later on have to do a horizontal. I'm just doing this to help you later. So we're going to include it. If you're doing horizontal, it has to be up by the exponent or has to be in with the exponent on an exponential. But here it's going to be x, let's say, minus 3. Vertex form if you're looking that up. And then we're going to square it. And you see that the red one is the parent. The blue one is a translation up, and the green one is horizontal to the right. These are the things you're going to have to do. So if I want to embed this, I can go over here to share graph. Maybe before this, I want to show the tables too. Let's see if we can put some tables in here. If you want, you don't have to, but you can see let's say if the embeds, I don't know, we'll go here and we're going to share, and I think embed's going to be probably the easiest. Control C, and I'm going to go back over here to my functions, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to, nope, sorry, I want to embed. And I'm going to do the embed code. V. And there's my graph. Somehow I got in the wrong section there, but you can move it up there. But the idea is to get it in here, and I can move it over there later. Or you can write down here. You can insert a text box. Remember that, and put what it is. The blue graph is the parent graph. The red graph, sorry. We're doing this. Red graph is the parent graph. Blue graph is translation of 3 units up. And I think you understand now what I'm expecting. You have to describe what's going on with your graph. And you're going to be doing this for looking at our rubric. We have to do this for translations, vertical, horizontal, reflections, and stretches. And Mr. Howell and I were discussing that maybe we should remind you what that is. So I'm going to go back over here, but you're just cutting and pasting. You can either put it in a slide, you can put it in a document, you can hand do it, whatever, but you got to get them in there and explain. Just as a reminder, you might want to know what a reflection is. What is a reflection, guys? Do you remember? There's a negative in front of it, right? And you can see there's a reflection. Right? The graph reflected. You don't want to have all the graphs on the same one. So I would cut these then, right? Because we don't want that. We might want our parent function so we can see the red one is the parent, the blue one is the reflected. Okay, what about a stretch? If you remember how to do a stretch, you have to multiply by a factor of greater than 1 if it's going to be a stretch. So it would be like 3 times x squared. And it makes the graph skinnier. Or if you're multiplying by a fraction, it's going to make it fatter because it's going to be called a shrink. Even though it's fatter, it's a shrink. I don't want to do it that way because it's going to be harder to see. I'm just going to turn it to fraction there, and x squared. So you need to describe it, but you don't want too busy. You want just the basic ones that it's asking you in each number, and then we're going to share it. And let's say we want to just export the image. Let's try that one. You want the line to be thicker or medium. You get all kinds of choices on here. Isn't that nice? Download to a picture. Copy to the clipboard. And then you could get back to your functions, right? Maybe I'll put it up here. And select the image. I think we can do that. I guess not. Let me see. I guess I could put it in your Google Drive. That might be another quick way to do it. If I put it with my Google Drive, then that was another one. I should have done that. So let's go back. But that's another quick way to do it, I guess, is, let's see. What do you think, Mr.? Oh, let's see. I'll go back over.
I think what I would just say right now is kind of what we were talking about before. Depending on what you're using,
yeah,
like there's going to be different ways to go about this. What this does is it downloads a picture automatically. So like you don't have to worry about screenshotting or anything. Like it downloads your picture. But you got to pay attention to where your picture actually goes. And the issue is, depending on what kind of device you're using, that could be different places. So it's kind of hard to show you in a video exactly where it's going to be. Probably in your download folder somewhere. But the point would be you download the picture, then you go find it and label it and put it somewhere where you can find it. And then when you go back to your actual website and you try to insert it, you go to that file on your computer and you insert it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I should have copied. Maybe I could have copied the code over here or uploaded it, like you said. I didn't know where I put it, so that's the key thing. So you can either put it in your drive the first time around, or upload it, or I can just copy the it from here, right? Can say, where am I going to upload it to here? Now that I know that it's over here, I can just put it here, and I'm going to move this up so I can see, and close this out, and open, and you can see there's the graph. So that looks pretty good that way too. So you have options.
Okay, yeah, and also too, like, I know I was just trying this while Ms. Livingston was working on the middle graph, but if you see on the right-hand side over here where I just put an image in, if you're on a PC and you tell it to download, most of the time it'll show up in like a little bar on the bottom of your browser. Like if you're using Google Chrome, which by the way, you should be if you can, because these are Google products and Chrome is going to work the best with them. That's just a fact. But anyway, if you're using Chrome and the download shows up in a little bar at the bottom of the screen, I literally clicked the download and just drug it over. Like you can just drag it and put it right there and it automatically puts it in place.
Great.
So that's
Great.
another way to to keep it organized. But again, it depends on what you're using. So for example, if you're using like Safari, like Apple's browser, I'm pretty sure that the downloads wind up like, there's like a little arrow, usually at like the top right of your screen somewhere. And if I remember correctly, you'd have to like actually open that and then go and get it. You'd still be able to drag and drop it. It's just going to be a little harder to find if you're not used to doing that. Again, you just got to explore. And
Yeah, that's what I did today. I didn't even realize that there was that embedded code. So we're hoping you're learning some things, and that's some things you could put in what Mr. Hal's going to talk about is the reflection. So after you have several of these graphs, but make sure it's not just a graph. You do have to explain how it's translated, stretched, or reflected. So you have to have some comment, click and use the little code and write it in there. Make sure that it's also at least one heading so it's popping up here in your table of contents. And then the last section, you can talk about things you might have learned. Hopefully you've learned some things doing this. I know Mr. Hal and I have learned some different things about what we can maybe use with the students next year. But you want to take it away now, Mr. Hal, with the next section?
Yeah, sure. I'll go for it. I'll go ahead and share my screen if you'll back out.
Okay.
All right. So, like Ms. Livingston was just saying, hopefully you have all learned something from this. But
We hope.
I personally, yeah, we hope. I've been getting a lot of questions, and one thing that I do want to say, and I'm going to try to keep this part as short as possible. But I'm back on the rubric here, which is what Ms. Livingston was just on. Pay attention to your rubric. I have a lot of people that are still asking, like, what you're supposed to do. The rubric specifically tells you. If you don't look at the rubric first, then you shouldn't be asking us that question. Like, you've got to look at the rubric. It specifically tells you. And frankly, what you're experiencing right now at these rubrics, your higher level classes, certainly if you go to college, a lot of times they feature rubrics like this. And I don't even want to say a lot of times, most of the time they feature a rubric. Only they don't have any kind of video that goes along with it. You're given the rubric and it's like, here you go. So one thing that I know for a fact after doing this is all of my students need more practice with using rubrics, just in general, because I have people that are leaving points on the table that don't even realize. So I'm going to go through what we just did just on the rubric and then keep going.
Right.
So building functions, what Ms. Livingston just talked about. Pay attention to what each of these pieces are. Like it tells you each parent function should be labeled f of x and g of x. G of x for whatever you create, like your transform function, your transformation. There are ways to label on Desmos, so play around with that a little bit. If you have trouble with it, you may have to find other ways to do it. But then down here, like, don't leave part B until you finish part B. It tells you to explain vertical translations. You should be doing that. That's what Ms. Livingston showed you. But down here in bold, it also tells you should have 3 graphs with 2 functions on each. So if you don't, already you did something wrong. So make sure you pay attention. Like, there's no reason to lose points because you didn't bother to read something. And I've had some people say, well, it's confusing. Look, y'all, there's nothing confusing about this rubric. Go week by week and read what it says. Like, it's outlined step by step by step. Some people are getting a little overwhelmed with like the busyness of it as far as how much you have to do. That's normal. I mean, this isn't anything that should be too extreme for anyone. Now,
well, the basic idea of this whole thing, may interject, it came from a state task for 9th graders, so it's not like we just all of a sudden said, okay, we took the idea and put it into a website, but the actual rubric like this came from a state of Georgia task.
Yeah, it did. Only I went through and actually broke it into pieces instead of y'all having tons of paragraphs to read.
Right. He
which
made,
would
yeah,
have
you
been
made
more
a lot of
difficult.
yes,
But
exactly.
anyway, and that's a good point, Ms. Livingston, and that's something I think y'all need to realize. Like, we're giving you material that every student your age should understand across the entire country, and really not even just the U.S. We're talking about going into other countries as well. Like, this is what you're expected to be able to do, and if you can't do it,
Right.
you're going to have trouble going forward. Um, the other
We
piece,
just thought we should teach you skills instead of just doing it by hand, which would have
right?
been the old.
Yeah. Um, and I guess the only other thing I'll say about this before I move to my part, y'all, please use Google. Like, if you don't know what vertical translation means, look it up. If you don't know what horizontal translation means, look it up. You could even go on YouTube and be like, what's a horizontal translation? You could type that in. Chances are you're going to find a video that explains it. And I'm going to bet you could go and type in vertical translation of linear into YouTube, and you'll probably find examples that way.
Oh,
Well,
definitely.
um,
Or have your notes from class. That would be unique, right?
yeah, yeah,
Have your
any
class,
notes that
have
you have
class
would be
notes.
great. Um,
That
and
would be wonderful.
And with that in mind, I will tell you, part E on here is probably the most difficult. Just speaking from experience, the stretches and the shrinks are just kind of weird for students to understand. And that's because, well, actually, it's pretty straightforward. Why? It's because there's fractions involved and people don't like fractions. So, uh,
It's
you know,
like
part E,
dilations, though, from eighth grade, right? We're going to be,
yeah,
aren't you doing dilations in geometry, right?
yeah, yeah. And you definitely do everything you see here with these transformations, you're going to be doing again in geometry next year, assuming you get credit for this course. If you're doing this project, that should mean you have credit. But anyway, um, if you don't know what it means, look it up. So going on to the next part, y'all got a little bit of flexibility here. Your last week is just really a reflection piece. This is kind of wrapping it all up, and this is where you give back to us and kind of summarize what you've done. The first part is a storyline or a word problem. It requires the most effort, which is why it's 30 points out of the total of 100 points from this week. It tells you to choose a topic, create a mini info news story to teach the general public how to apply functions to their lives. Record your video on Flipgrid, on Flipgrid on the board titled Storyline/Word Problems. Okay. One, you don't have to use Flipgrid. I want to be clear. You could make a video any way you want to, and you could put it on you could even put it on your website. I put that there as an option. Flipgrid is what was in it originally. I went ahead and put a board on my Flipgrid called that just in case somebody in my class decided to do a Flipgrid. You don't have to. But the reason why we said Flipgrid initially is because it's usually no more than about a 5-minute video. And we don't need you doing any more than like a 5-minute video. Like, we're not asking you to make a 30-minute news broadcast.
Oh, yeah, we know.
It should be
Exactly.
short. And again, that's what Flipgrid is. They're short little videos. But you don't have to use Flipgrid. What you do have to do is follow the instructions and make a news story about how to apply functions to someone else's life. Don't overcomplicate this. You just have to explain how something that can be shown with a function relates to real life. You just have to explain it. If you can find a way to show us pictures of stuff while you explain it, awesome. But that just asks you to explain it. And down below it, there are even some ideas that we've given you. So you don't even really have to go look up information. So don't get stressed out about that part. So like compare cell phone plans, gym plans. Most of those are going to be linear relationships. Some are jobs. You can model how much money you make with linear models as well. Cost per text message, college loans, that's going to be exponential most likely because you're going to have interest rates involved. Car payments, also exponential because you're going to have interest rates involved. Salary of 2 different jobs. I mean, those are not the only things that you're limited to, but those are examples that you can use. And again, don't overcomplicate this. Look up some of those things, consider how they are used, and then explain how that applies to a function. Explain how it could be a linear relationship. And I'll tell you right now, before we go to the next part, like compare cell phone plans. You can even go on to like the carrier websites, so like T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, Cricket, whatever. And a lot of times they'll have comparison charts. You can actually look up a comparison chart and you have all the information you need right there. So like, don't overcomplicate it. The remaining part of this would be reflection and advice. And this is where we're basically just asking you to give us feedback. Please do not lose points here. Like, this should be the easiest part of the whole project. Please, please, please do not lose points here. Describe your learning journey throughout the unit. Reflect on topics you found easy to learn and those that were most difficult. What is interesting for y'all is that you're all doing this online from home, and originally this would have been done online in class. So you should have a lot more to talk about there, honestly, than the usual people doing this, because y'all are all experiencing coronavirus and the usual people were not. Again, you could type that, you could do that in a video response. We don't really care. We're not asking you to type us a story, and we're not asking for a 30-minute video. Just describe, reflect on what you've done, make sure you've answered each part of it, and you're good. Part C, what advice would you give to other students that will learn about linear, quadratic, and exponential functions? So right there, make sure that you actually give advice to future students, and make sure it's not just like one sentence that says something like study hard. That's not what we're looking for. We want you to actually include maybe, what did you find difficult? What did you find easiest? What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started? Maybe like a way of studying or something like that. So please put in the effort. Part D, what tasks did you find most beneficial to mastering key standards? Yeah, so basically, which part of this project, which of the weeks that you've done, did you think was the most helpful for you understanding what was going on? And then part E, and I'll take a step back. Part D, by the way, you could reflect on the classroom this year too there. That doesn't have to just be this project. You could think about other tasks that you've done in our classes. If there's something that you think went particularly well or that you like, tell us. Part E, which strategies? So notes, Khan Academy, USA Test Prep, packets of units, Google Classroom, videos, Coachbook, Delta Math. What did you find to be the most beneficial? That we didn't say what did you find to be the easiest or what did you like to do. What do you find to have helped you learn the most? And then part F, we just said any other insight that you'd like to give us about Algebra 1 and bonus. So if you actually do well on this, you actually answer everything thoroughly, and you make a point to provide extra information, we'll consider that in your overall grade. Works cited. You can't steal people's ideas. So any resources that you used, you need to actually cite them.
If you use the coach book, you should put the coach book down.
Yeah.
Or if you use other websites, you do that.
If you use something like Desmos, you actually don't have to because, if you embed it, you don't have to because it literally says on there that it's from Desmos, like it cites itself. But if you just find like a random picture from somewhere, really, you're supposed to be citing those. So just make sure you put some citations on there. Notice it says MLA format. If you don't know how to do that, there are free generators online. If you have Microsoft Word, the newer versions, will do that for free as well.
And the Google Docs does it too.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so the Google Doc platform does as well. Down below, don't forget this part, the bonus, compare and contrast. We're not gonna go through that, but if you choose to do it, I wish you the best. And, read carefully, attempt it. And before we close, I just want to go back to the website really quick. Everything that we just talked about, just add it on here, add more sections. You can choose whichever layout you think is going to look the best for whatever you've got to do. Make sure that you actually label your headings as a header or a title so that it shows up on your table of contents. If you don't have a table of contents quite like this, and you've got like running pages across the top, which I know some of my students do, okay, that's fine. But what we are saying is if everything is on this one page, it should be showing up in a table of contents up here.
And I'd like to also mention too, don't forget to publish it every time you update. Yeah. And You don't have to turn it in as you do a section either, because but the thing you have to do is share it with us. If you share it with us, we can see that you're doing it by each section. If we went to just randomly look at it, we can see what you're doing. If you want to send us an email or something that says, hey, I finished all my sections except the storyline or something, we could be going ahead to start grading it. You know, the whole idea of doing the dates was so we can keep up with it. So really, if you've been working right along with us, then we shouldn't have much to grade that last time you turn it in. You don't really turn it in until the last time, and you just really need to share it, right?
Right. And what some people have done is they share it with us, which is great, but then they turn it in. And the problem with turning something in on Google Classroom is it has the tendency to lock you out of it if you turn it in.
Exactly.
And it's like that for a reason, because once you submit something and you're saying, hey, grade this, you're not supposed to be able to edit it. Does the same thing to us with our lesson plans every week. We have to submit them.
Yeah, it's a real pain.
And guess what? If we submit it, it officially locks our documents. Like, we can't go back and edit it without unsubmitting it, which is fine. But then whoever your teacher is, in our case, whoever our assistant principal is, they get a message saying that we changed it. So
yeah,
with this, it's like a working, living thing. We don't need you to turn in your website. What we do need you to do is let us know what you've done. And I've seen people with emailing. I've seen people turning in copies of the rubric, which is perfect. You could even turn in like a Google Doc where you type out what you would have put in the email and just turn that in and be like, here, I did this, you know.
Yeah, just make a comment that you did it and said that you're done, because don't just send it to us, because like Mr. Howell said, it's locked out. Just share it with us.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, aside from that, I don't really have any other concerns with this. I do hope that you all give us some good feedback, though. We're looking forward to those reflections so that we know how we can make this better in the future. Keep in mind, this is the first time that we've had to do distance learning like this as well. So let us know what works. Let us know what doesn't work. Let us know what's helped you. Let us know what has hurt you. I mean, like what didn't work for you. And that's things we can use in the future to help everybody else.
Right. And I guess this is the last video that we have, but we are here for you for the next 2 weeks. And you can always schedule an appointment to talk to us if you want to share a video.
Yeah, please do. Really well. I mean, nobody from my class has requested one yet. I've told y'all, you know, I will do one-on-ones. I haven't been able to offer video sessions at like exact times because the schedule's just been kind of crazy. We've had different things going on, and frankly, I have a 7-month-old at home, so like it's hard for me to be like, yeah, I can definitely be available at this time. But I've told everybody.
Schedule a meeting, it'd be good. Just
schedule it, and no one has. So, I mean, I'm not bitter. Like, I'm okay with that, but don't complain if you haven't bothered to be like, hey, how do I do this?
And don't wait till the last day, because that's probably when some people are going to be trying to get a hold of us. We only have so many hours in the day. So don't wait till the last day.
Yep. So, I guess in closing for me, I'm just, I'm glad that we are winding all this up. I'm glad that y'all are going to be able to take a deep breath and kind of be done. I think you should all be very thankful that you have this opportunity, though, because obviously it's not great circumstances, but needless to say, we don't give opportunities for people to add credit to their overall grade. Like, that does not happen. And in this case, we're talking about if you get an A on this, you could hypothetically, 7 points is going to be a whole letter grade for some people.
Right.
We're talking about raising your B to an A. And most people in this class are freshmen. Nick, we're talking about an opportunity for you to really go up and repair your GPAs in all of your classes, which is a really big deal because your GPA is going to follow you now for the rest of high school. And needless to say,
and GMAS to have to deal with either.
Yeah, and like Hope Scholarship and stuff like that depends on your GPA. Well, you got to have a B average. Well, right now, for like the first time really ever, anybody who's got a C right now could probably boost their grades in all their classes to B. So I mean, like we're talking about scholarships here. We're talking about lots of things, which really, the trade-off is not a whole lot of work because we've had to cut down on what you can do. Like we can't give you a ton of work to do each week. So really, it's a good opportunity. Some people are taking advantage of it. Others are not, and that's okay. We're just thankful for those of you that are, and we just want you to push through it here at the end and do a good job.
Sounds great. Other than that, if I didn't get to talk to you, have a great summer, and see you the following year.
Yeah,
I don't
on the flip side, whenever that is.
Right. Okay, be safe.
Yeah, be safe. Take care, everybody.